So, white supremacy is really all around us. And it's feeling really apparent lately. um, just from everything, like even the most like obvious shit or whatever, uh, like all this like conservative grifting and like all the people who fall for it. I need to stay the fuck off of social media because Facebook is really what's got me feeling like this right now. And it's just really disheartening, it's really disheartening to see so many people willfully ignorant to injustices of the world, right? And like I'm always like, especially like on Facebook, right? Like I'm checking the profiles of the motherfuckers like responding and like laugh reacting to what I'm saying and shit. And it's always these like middle class suburban white people, you know what I mean? Cuz like a lot of shit gets talked about like, oh, like, poor white people are what got Donald Trump elected, right? Most poor white people I knew don't vote. You know what I'm saying? Uh which, whether or not you think that that has led to the election of Donald Trump, it's like, okay, well, fair, right? But it's really like these like small business tyrants and like, motherfuckers paying for their first house off the car dealership job who are really going the hardest for fucking old DJT on pretty much any social media platform. And it just is so bad to see people laughing in the face of constant fucking tragedies. You know what I mean? Like, people talk about like, like I don't even know, man. Like I'm just kind of freewheeling it right now, but talking about like police reform or prison reform or ICE reform or what the fuck ever else, when you talk about like what's going on in Palestine or whatever, right? Like any shit like that, there are always just people who, like fucking maggots crawl out of the rotting log and come and just have all this shit to talk with no solution because in their head this shit is working exactly the way it's supposed to, right? And whether they realize it or not, which, in my heart, I like to imagine that most people uh, don't, uh, like most people are like willfully ignorant of white supremacy, right? And, even worse, those that are aware and are adamant about the fact that white supremacy is the way forward for this fucking planet, And it's just fucking um yeah, I mean, I just wish that at the very least, these people could just like take a look in the mirror and like realize what they're actually advocating for. But the thing is I think a lot of them know what they're advocating for and insist upon that, My entire fucking life I always heard white people in my family say I'm not racist but, and then say some of the most racist shit you've ever heard in your fucking life, right? Like my own grandmother is firmly of the opinion that she is not racist, but she does not hold a high opinion of black people. She does not hold a high opinion of any darker skinned Hispanic person, right? And I've just seen that through her words and actions through all the fucking years and stuff. And even as young as when I was like a little kid, there was there was this one family. I can't really remember the names of all of them off the top of my head, but the kid who was in my grade, his name was Ronald, right? And he was biracial, and he had an older sister, and I can't remember the older sister's name, but I remember when I was like 7 years old, my grandma was like, "Oh, well, the reason that they're not, like." What she really meant when she was saying this is like, oh, well, the reason that they don't misbehave like black people normally do is because of their white mother, quote unquote, raising them right, you know? And I was like 7 and I heard my grandma say this and I'm like, Grandma, that sounded pretty racist, you know? Um, because from a very early age, like between like my schooling and like the media that I consumed, like diversity to me has always been a good thing. It just brings like a broader range of ideas. Diversity prevents you from making the same fucking mistakes over and over in your society. Diversity prevents you from making the same mistakes over and over in your culture. Diversity especially breaks up the fucking monotony of white Hollywood, in the sense of like that's what's nice about like the situation that we're in now as far as Hollywood goes, is obviously there's a lot more roles for people of color that do not firmly land inside of stereotype, right? And fucking like it just and the thing is like throughout my life it always has kind of looped back to two things, right? Is or I guess really three things, but I mean really the shit's all connected, right? It's like at the end of the day, the reason most bad shit happens in this world is for money, right? And things like white supremacy and like patriarchy um reinforce the ability for the rich and powerful to manipulate masses um into it's like it's always just about like sowing division, you know what I mean? Like they do always want us to focus on differences more than similarities, right? It's like, hey, like you know like even if you feel this way or that way, like at the end of the day we're still working class, so really we should have some empathy for each other, right? Like we should be on the same side here. And I'm not going to sit here and say that like labor politics are like the silver bullet for every social issue, but it would definitely crack away at most of them, pretty quickly, right? And this is just where like black radicalism plays into like uh the discussion around labor politics, in the sense that there were plenty of unionized workers who were still racist as shit, routinely people of color were denied union positions, right? There during the segregation era, unions were segregated, like that was just what was going on, and it just it just requires like a certain level of critical self-reflection that I think most people lack, right? There needs to be like a level of introspection that most people are too afraid to look inward and really get to the root of like why they feel a type of way about a certain type of thing, right? And and then that introspection can lead you to action, right? Like that shit can lead you to like like better understanding, like do your research, read a fucking book. I mean, hell, just watch a fucking movie. Um, and, like I'm turning 30 this year, and, it just feels like, in my life, people I've met in the United States just have especially white people, just have like a brutal, lack of introspection, especially when it comes to the economic structure that we live under and the social structure that we live under. Because, again, whether they realize it or not, that's just benefiting them directly, right? And, it's like I try to, give people of a similar skin tone to me the benefit of the doubt in this regard and be like, oh, well, they probably just don't realize it. It's probably like subconscious or whatever. The motherfuckers who do realize it, and like, because that's really the thing, right? Is that like, you start to take a look at history and you have to do one of two things, right? Like, especially if you're looking at American history, you got to do one of two things. You got to either say, oh shit, everything that I thought I knew about this shit was a lie, and you got to build that knowledge back up. Or you can say, oh, actually, all this shit that happened was actually good, and it just reinforces my existing belief about like racial hierarchy and economic hierarchy. And it but most people are just not even really willing to take that first step, you know what I mean? Like, as a white person in the United States, saying you're not racist doesn't mean anything. Like, in the United States, and, the thing is, the reason why I talk about the United States so much is I don't live in other countries, so I don't really know what the fuck shit's going on over there, right? But, like, you just gotta, like, have that introspection and say, like, okay, well, I don't think I'm racist, but white supremacy is all around us. White supremacy is the public education system. It's your entire fucking history class is basically white supremacist shit. And in what ways have I been indoctrinated? Where has the propaganda reached me? And the it's not bad to make mistakes, because making mistakes is how you grow, right? But if you make a mistake and you won't acknowledge that it's a mistake and you refuse to grow from that, that's exactly how we get in the fucking situation we are in right now. Like, if you make a mistake, and what's that thing, the narcissist prayer, like, if you it's like, oh, well, if I hurt your feelings, it was, your fault, and, and I didn't mean to, and if I did mean to, then, you deserved it anyways, etc. Like, go look that shit up, the narcissist prayer. I feel like that is really kind of the MO for a lot of white people in the United States right now, right? And, the thing is, that's really, I think, where my falling out with a lot of people who theoretically I would politically align with, right? Like, when I used to live, back around like West Virginia and Kentucky and shit, right? Uh, there were I was friends with, like, I was not friends with any motherfucker who voted Republican. I'll tell you that much right now. I was not rocking it with any motherfucker voting Republican, right? But even like a lot of people who like vote Democrat and shit, it's like or I mean, God forbid, like when all that Black Lives Matter shit was like really kicking off back in 2020, man, really got to find out some shitty ass opinions that people I knew had around then, right? But yeah, it's I mean, it's a motherfucker, right? Cuz a lot of people consider someone like Bernie Sanders already too far left, right? Or like Mamdani. It's like, oh, well, he's like too far left. Like, he's like a communist or whatever, right? But people also say that about like fucking Kamala Harris. So it's like, what do you people mean when you say that? Like, what do the people who say that like Obama is a communist, like, where, like, motherfuckers just don't even really understand what the fuck they're saying when they say some shit like that. But that's what I'm saying, though, is that it's like the Overton window in the United States is so fucking narrow that most people cannot even conceive of radicalism, right? Most people are not even really brushing the surface of like an actual critique of the United States, right? It's like all the people who are like, oh, well, you know, like I remember back in 2016, when Donald Trump got elected the first time, people were like, "Oh, impeach him, impeach him," and I'm just like, I'm not even sure impeaching him is really gonna fix shit like that though, because Mike Pence seems like he's just as bad, you know. Um, and it's like the same way now with like JD Vance. It's like, man, you know, it's like we gotta. I guess really what I'm saying, and the reason why I'm recording this right now, I literally just got pissed off on social media, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna record this shit and upload it to YouTube to make it extremely clear where I stand on this shit, right? We gotta take the whole system down. We gotta start this shit over from scratch. Like, this shit is not working out. Like, for any number of fucking reasons, this shit is not working out. Um, but, you know, it's just like, you know, people who are like, oh, well, like, the solution to police brutality is more funding for the police. No, that ain't it. People who are like, oh, like, the problem is that Donald Trump is president, not the fact that the office of the president is the seat of imperialism for the United States, right? And, you know, and that's not even getting into, like the fucked up way that, like, the Senate is laid out, or, like, how the Electoral College works in this fucking country. I mean, hell, in the founding fucking document of this country, they said that black slaves were basically half of a human being, right? And the thing that's always really fucked me up about that is that the only reason the white slave owners in the South, so the white slave owners in the South, right, did not want their black slaves to be considered people, right? But they petitioned for their slaves to count for 3/5 of a person for the state population so that they could get more representatives in Congress, right? So basically, every fucking white slave owner in the South got way overrepresented. Oh, fuck me, do the math here real quick, right? If a white slave owner in the South had 15 slaves, that basically means that he gets like 4 times the representation in Congress, because not only does he get his own representation, but all 15 of those slaves add up to 3 white men as far as like the political system is concerned. You know what I mean? So it's like we just need to scrap that, you know? Yeah, and talking about slave owners, like, you know, people always talk shit about reparations. You know, for descendants of slaves, for freed black men, or black people of America, you know what I'm saying? And people are so vehemently opposed to that, right? But the thing about that is that who did get who did get fucking reparations were the fucking slave owners. Good morning, Robbie. Sorry, did I wake you up?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Are you sure?
No, I'm actually not streaming. I'm actually just recording my thoughts right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get so damn loud.
Yeah, like I heard some.
I mean, you know, I've been watching a lot of yappers lately, so I thought I'd take my turn, you know? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake you up. I just woke up pissed off. Alright, let me go ahead and wrap this shit up. It's 6:15 in the fucking morning right now, me screaming about all this bullshit. Let me chill the fuck out for a minute before I wake up the entire goddamn house. But yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to put my thoughts down. I just wanted to put my thoughts down about, you know, how I feel about all this shit, you know? Especially on the YouTube channel, because, like, obviously if you watch the Twitch stream, you should hopefully already know how I feel about this stuff. But you know, the YouTube channel, it's like I hadn't really made it clear, right? And there was someone who came to the Twitch stream from the YouTube channel, seemed to have no idea what the fuck I'm about, you know? So this is what I'm about. See you later.